Welcome everyone to part 2 of the full production process. Now that I have the footage shot, I want to show you how I store the footage, how to edit it, color correct, sound design, the whole works, all the way to the final export and delivery of the final product to your client. So first, let's talk about data management. On this project specifically, I was dumping the footage as I went to make sure all of the shots worked nicely together as far as continuity goes. So I was dumping all of my footage onto these 2 terabyte WD My Passport drives, which I highly recommend, and was transferring all the footage from my card using a Lexar USB 3.0 reader, which you can get off of Amazon for about 30 bucks and these for about 80 bucks. And then I brought it home and transferred everything over to my 16 terabyte G-RAID drive, and I have all of my work labeled in years. So this was shot in 2016, and this was a commercial project, and this was the first commercial we shot for Ogden's Carpet. So in here you see all of my footage, and I have it organized in different scenes that we shot. Here's all the audio files that were taken by Brennan, my sound guy, using the boom mic. And then here's other files like sound designs and VFX. So once I have all my footage organized in this folder, I will put my project file in the same folder. Let's open that up. It's already open here. So first I'm going to show you the final product that I've already delivered to the client, and then I'm going to go back and break down all the details that I put into creating this product. So this is the final commercial I delivered to Ogden's Carpet. So there you have it. That was a super simple 30-second commercial that we did for him. We're now going to break it down, and I'm going to show you the steps I took to get that final product. So the first step was choosing music. Now, I had been editing on set to make sure that everything worked continuity-wise, and so when I came home, I already had the project pretty much edited, but I did not have music selected yet for the piece. While I was on set, just so I had an idea for the vibe and feel I wanted to get, I had a temporary music track put in place from an existing commercial that I liked the vibe of that I wanted to kind of replicate. So I'm now going to play for you the song that I was editing to on set to help me know what kind of vibe to edit to, but knowing that I was going to change the music later. So here it is. I'll keep you safe. Try hard to concentrate. Hold out your hand. Can you feel the weight of it? The whole world at your fingertips. Don't be afraid. Okay, so that was the original music that I was editing to, but it helped me get a vibe and helped me do a rough cut. So using that music, I came home and I got onto audiojungle.net and started looking for a similar vibed piece. And I actually spent about 6 hours looking through different pieces of music and finding the perfect fit for it. But I just started out by looking on the popular page of their best sellers and just started listening to different songs. And after listening to probably 200 or 300 different songs, I narrowed it down to about 2 or 3 songs that I liked, and then eventually ended up picking this one right here, which is in the final product now, called Bright and Inspiring. And the way you license these tracks is I just click on it here. I decide the music license, so I asked the client and said, how many people do you plan on distributing this to? And they said it will definitely be less than 1 million. And so I selected up to 1 million. I bought it, and then I stuck it in my project file. But you'll notice that with my song, it's not just played all the way through. I had to cut it up into 3 different parts and then crossfade them together to make it 30 seconds. Because the song itself was about 2 minutes long total, and I didn't need the whole 2-minute piece, I just needed 30 seconds. But there were specific parts within that song that I wanted to utilize. I wanted the intro, I wanted somewhere in the middle, and I wanted the chorus and the ending, and I had to squish all of that 2 minutes into 30 seconds. And so to fix that, I cut it up into 3 portions, and I'll show you how I determined where to cut. So I noticed first of all that from here to here and from here to here is repeating itself. So I knew I could cut out one of those 2 loops without cutting out anything important in the song. So right before it hits on this new part of the music, and then I cut to here and fade those 2 together. and it's pretty seamless. Now I'll usually play with that a little bit and make sure it's at the exact beat of the song so it doesn't feel glitchy. For example, if I had this a little bit too far forward, you can see that the music comes in a little bit too soon or doesn't go with the beat of the song. So you have to find that sweet spot where you can't tell that I've cut out any of the song. So once I found that part, now I'll find the end of the song. So I'm gonna cut on that beat right there. And then I'm gonna take the outro here. And then I'm gonna find that same point in the song in this chorus and try and mesh those two together. So as you can see right now, the beats aren't matching up, so I have to find those 2 points where they match. So there's a beat right there that I remember hearing at the end. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete that and try and find it in the last chorus. Right there. And then mesh those two together. And there you have it. So I've successfully broken up this song into 3 pieces, a beginning, middle, and end. I made it a 30-second song instead of a 2 to 3 minute song so that I could fit it into my 30-second spot for the commercial. Once I had the song spliced up into 30 seconds, I then went back and re-edited to this new piece of music so that all my clips hit on those marks that I wanted them on. So the edit that you see right now is already edited to this new music, but before I put in the new music, it was slightly different and I had to adjust some of those clips' lengths to make sure it fit that music perfectly. Once I had chosen the music and had the edit the way I liked it, I sent it to the client to see what the reactions were on the edit and the music. And once they approved of those 2 things, I then moved on to sound design. So these 4 levels are my sound design tracks, and I pulled them from all the boom audio that Brendan was getting all day. And a lot of these aren't from the actual takes that you're seeing on camera, but were just random sound bites that he'd gotten throughout the day. So I was literally pulling whatever awesome sound clips that I could find that would match with what I was seeing. So here's a look with these layers of sound design with just the sound design only so you can hear what it sounds like.
Daddy, hi.
So just to kind of go over some of the different sounds I threw in, let's isolate just this first layer so you can see what I've thrown in here. So this was just him scuffling up to his toy. And I believe that was the actual sound from that clip. And then as he looks away, I threw in the sound of the door to sell that he was looking at Dad coming inside. So again here, I'm not using the actual audio. I just threw in some laughs that he had done later on to fill in that smile that you see on his face. And at the end here, I just threw in some laughs that were taken from a shot that we didn't even use in the video to sell the fact that Dad is tickling him and they're having a great time, even after you're done seeing any visuals. So let's look at layer 2 now so you can see what I put on this one. So right there you see the hit on the toy as he's grabbing it. And you can't see him dropping the toy, but I wanted to be able to sell the fact that he let go of it.
Daddy, hi.
Now these 2 sound bites, Daddy and Hi, were different clips taken at different times during the day, but it made it a lot cuter to have him say that as he's running up to Dad, so I threw those 2 sounds in as well.
Daddy, hi.
You can kind of tell those 2 sound bites were taken at different times.
Daddy, hi.
But again, when thrown with other sounds and music, you can't really tell. And I think those sounds were actually from that take. And now level 3 is the sound of him making the airplane noise, again from a different take. And some added door noise. And this was the actual audio from this take. And so is this. And then down here we have a secondary noise of him flying the airplane. So again, let's take a look at all 4 of those layers of sound design all together.
Daddy. Hi.
So there you have it. That was the sound design. That took me probably 3 or 4 hours to find all those sounds and match them together. And once I had all those sounds put in there the way I liked it, I then sent that over to Brendan, by the way, who's my sound guy, my sound designer, and I had him just clean it up and match the levels and make it sound even a little bit better. Sound isn't my specialty. I know how to do the basics like this sound designing you just watched, but as far as cleaning it up and making it sound even better, I don't know all the ins and outs of how to do that. I'm not a sound engineer. Now that I had this sound design done, I came up here to File, Export, OMF, which is the file that a lot of sound designers will ask for. And then I exported out the OMF and I sent that to Brennan, which gave him all of these raw audio files that he could then mix and match the levels and play with and perfect it to the next level.
So basically what we did is once we received the OMF, we did some volume adjustments on things. Just kind of first leveled out the sound effects as a whole. We muted all the music and we just focused on that. And I listened through multiple times. We did a couple passes and listened for things that were missing gaps, okay? So I like to listen first through as a whole and then listen through without music and say, okay, well, what are we missing? What feels awkward? What feels out of place? So we shifted a couple clips around. We found a few more clips to add in, some like clothes movements and some footsteps and some of the dad and the bag movement. And so it was things like that that we were just finding these pockets that we were filling in. Now, Parker did an amazing job at providing me with a ton of stuff to use. In this case, it made my job a lot easier. And so I was able to take what he did and use that as reference and tweak those things, like I said, just a little bit, and then add in some other things like the bag, the footsteps, the clothes. When he's throwing the kid, we add in some things there. The mom in the kitchen, we added a little bit of sound there because it was a little dull. And then we added in, some background, just ambience, like an air conditioner, because we wanted to just give a cohesive glue to the whole thing. And then that way, it kind of brought the whole thing together. If you want to learn more about audio, head over to audioguide.co, where we can hang out and have a lot of fun, because it'll be a lot of fun. Okay, see you guys.
And then Brendan sent me back one file with the sound design cleaned up and mixed and mastered with the music file. And this right here is the final mixed and mastered sound design and music all put together. Once the sound was all taken care of, I then started color correcting. So I'm going to show you some of the steps I took to color correct this piece. It was a very basic color correction, nothing intense, but I'm going to show you the before and after. So on clip number 1, here was the before. It was just kind of dark and a little bit warmer than I wanted. And so step number 1 for me was getting the right exposure. And for that, I like to use RGB curves. And so I brought up my shadows and my highlights and found the right spot that I liked and toggled it on and off to make sure I liked the exposure. And you see the background kind of blows out a little bit, but I wanted to make sure to expose for him and the toy, and so I was okay with blowing out the background just a little bit. And if you're on a Mac, something I'd recommend is putting your brightness up to about 2 to 3 notches down from all the way bright to help you get a correct reading on the exposure of your image. So once I feel good with exposure, now I'm actually correcting the color itself, and as I toggle that on and off, you can see that the changes I've made was bringing the temperature down, the tint up just a little bit, and that's about it. Pretty basic color correction. I just wanted it to feel white and clean. I believe we shot this whole thing at about 5600 to 6000 Kelvin, and so I played with the color just a little bit to give it a little bit cooler of a look. And then once I had that clip color corrected, I pushed Command C to copy this clip, came over to here and pushed Option V, which brings up paste attributes, and then I can choose to add just Lumetri color, which I did, and it pasted the exact same attributes onto this clip. So here's the before and after of the clip, a little bit warm, a little bit underexposed, and then here's with the exposure brought up and the image cooled down just a little bit. And then once I have that second clip color corrected, I'll go back and forth to make sure that the color in both these clips match up and look the same. And as long as the exposures and colors look similar, I will move on to the next clip. Again, I will Option V to paste the same attributes, and then come in here and just fine adjust to make this match the previous clip. So here's the before and after, a little bit cooler and a little bit brighter. That's pretty much all we're doing on these clips. And then this clip was shot in a different scene, so we had to change our color correction just a little bit. So with this one, you see that I didn't change the temperature. I brought the tint down this time instead of up because we had a little bit of a magenta hue in there. And so I brought this down to -5 to get rid of that red tint. And you'll see my RGB curves over here are a lot higher on this one because this shot wasn't lit quite as well. So we had to bring that up quite a bit. And on this clip I was getting some weird purple hues in the shot. And so to eliminate those, I came in here to this color wheel and I dropped down just the purples to get rid of that purple hue. So that's the before and after on that clip. The next clip was pretty similar, and then the kitchen clip was actually my toughest color correction, and I'll show you why. And you'll notice that on a few of these clips I've applied warp stabilizer to smooth them out just a tad more. But let's take a look now at the color correction, and you'll see that here I've applied a little bit of temperature, a little bit of tint, and a little bit of highlights, just bringing up the exposure just a tad. So there's the before and after, not a huge change, just a little change to try and match the clips before it. And if you come down here, you'll see that I've applied a secondary color lumetri, and I've applied a mask. And if I click on the mask here, you can see which part I've masked out. And the reason I've done this, let me toggle this on and off so you can see the difference. Look at that green hue that's showing up there in the top left. So if you look at the two cabinets on the left and right, the left is a little bit green hued and the right is a little bit magenta hued. And our lighting technicians on set couldn't figure out how to get those to match, and so we just had to shoot it, and they said, you know what, just fix it in post. And so we've done that by drawing a mask around the part, and then I created some keyframes by clicking on here so that I could change the size of that mask as the camera orientation changed. And then you'll see that the effects I put on it is bringing the temperature down 4 and the tint up 4, and that's all I've done to that area inside there to help bring this color to match more closely to that color. So again, on and off to show you the before and after on getting rid of that green tint. Now on this final clip, we had to actually make a major change because if you notice up here in the right top corner, that family isn't the same as the family you're seeing on screen. But because we didn't have a giant portrait to stick up there of the acting family, we decided just to do that in post-production. So I had Dallin find a Facebook photo of the family and gave it to Aaron Sorensen, who is my VFX guy who does all my VFX work, and I gave him the photo and said, okay, I need you to replace that portrait that you see up there with this one of the actual family. And Aaron Sorensen is actually creating a video effects course similar to mine, but focusing just on the video effects that you do in After Effects. So I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of what he did in this case to fix this problem for me. So here's Aaron Sorensen with VFX.
Hello, this is Aaron with VFX Central, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to remove and replace a photo in a moving shot. So this is actually the final result, and I'll show you what it looked like before. So here's before with this photo right here, and after, here's what we did. Let's first jump into Mocha and track our shot. Okay, so here we are in Mocha, and the first thing we need to do is click on our spline tool. We need to draw a shape around where we need to track. And the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that these are in our corners. This is where the corner pin gets its data. So let's line these up. I'm just going to actually stretch this out a little bit more. There we go. Okay. After that, make sure that we have translation, scale, rotation, and shear checked, and then we simply hit track forward. Now that our track is done, we can see that our track slid just a little bit, and this could be because this has been stabilized, so we need to clean this up right here. We can check our track by actually clicking this hand, and when we hit play, the footage will stabilize around this point, and we can see where things are sliding. So to fix this, if we go into the Adjust Track tab right here, and we scrub to the very end, because the beginning has a little green keyframe, so the end we want to make another keyframe, and we just drag this into the corner and make sure that the lines right here are also lining up properly. Move this one into the corner and adjust this a little bit. We can scrub through our footage and we can see now it is holding really, really well. We may even want to make one more keyframe about halfway just to make sure that things aren't sliding around. Now that we've adjusted our track and we've checked to make sure everything's holding, we can actually put in a temporary image to see how it's looking. This is the image we're going to be using, but we're going to have to do some compositing to make it look right. You can also do grids, and this is very helpful when you're lining up planes and grounds and making sure that everything is proportionally correct. Now that we have it tracked, we need to export this tracking data into Adobe After Effects. And to do that, make sure you're in the Track tab and go over to Export Tracking Data. And I do After Effects Corner Pin supports motion blur. Hit Copy to Clipboard, and let's jump back into Adobe After Effects. Okay, so here we are in Adobe After Effects, and the first thing we need to do is to drop the picture that we want to replace over the footage. So I'm going to drag and drop this right here. And if you click on the image and you paste the data, you'll see that it's not going to work. And I'm going to show you why. The reason why is this image is not properly scaled to the dimensions of the footage. So the first thing I do is scale it so it fits within this image. I like to even scale it this way, and you'll see why in a second. And then you want to Control-Shift-C and pre-compose it and move all the attributes into a new composition. And after that, then we hit paste, and we can see that the corner pins worked perfectly and it lined it up. And if we scrub through our footage, we can see that it's looking great. Now we need to do a little bit of compositing. So turn on the Motion Blur tab, and this will add a little bit of motion blur when there's movement. And we also need to match the lighting and the environment of the footage. So to do that, I have a couple techniques that really help me. And one of them is to create a new solid and sample maybe the wall or the natural environment color and hit OK. Let's zoom back out. And with the corner pin data, we want to paste it onto the pale orange solid, and we'll see now it's covering our image, but that's okay, because what we're going to do is if we go to the mode and we go to soft light, this will actually create the illusion of the same environment that's in the room. So I'll just turn that on and off to show you. So that's looking great. Now we need to do some color correction, and to do that we need to do the levels and we need to darken it, milk it, and those highlights are way too bright for a picture, so we need to bring those way down. And if we toggle these on and off, we can start comparing our image and see what needs to be done. I feel like this still needs to be a little bit darker. So let's do that. Let's bring down our highlights even more. And we can bring up our blacks, raise the blacks so it's just a little bit more milky. And I think we're getting to a good place. So another thing we need to do is we actually need to add a fast blur. And the reason why I do that is because sometimes these images are at such high resolution that when you scale them down, they look too sharp. So by softening them, let's see if 0.1 even, that's a little too much. Let's do 0.5. That's just enough to match the footage underneath. So let's compare. And this image is actually a lot warmer, and it's because the actual photo is warmer, but we could even warm this up even more. By doing that, in the levels, if I go to my blue and I raise those, we can see that some yellow is being introduced there, and we can actually add some even in our highlights by bringing it down right there. If that's looking like too much, it's always fine-tuning until it just looks right, and by toggling that, okay, I think that's looking pretty good. Another thing we need to add is the dirtiness, and dirty this up. And what I mean by that is add the little things that, it's the little details that will make things look a lot better. And one of those things is the grain and the chromatic aberration, which is the splitting between RGB, which is, you can see in the footage right here, this line, there's a red line right there, and you can see it here, and there's a green line on this side, and that's called chromatic aberration. And we can get that same effect with Magic Bullet looks, which I highly recommend and I use probably on every project. So let's just drag that in there. And in here, if we go to the lens and drag this in there and turn up our red, we can see we're creating that same red pattern on this side. And I believe if we drag it this way, we'll get a green on the other side. Yeah, so it looks like we're getting that same effect. I did it pretty drastically only because that image is going to be scaled down. So hit finish, and it's very subtle, but if we toggle it on and off, you can actually see it happening. So it's little things like that. We also probably should add some noise. You can either do match grain, where you select some grain in the footage, like the family photo, or family portrait VFX footage, and hit final output. And just turning this on and off, you can see that we added some grain, and you can tweak it if you feel like, oh, maybe that's a little too big. We just can scale it down. And by adding grain, it won't feel like the picture's lifeless. It'll feel like it was actually recorded in that environment. With that, I think that's about it. I'm going to preview this and see if that's looking good. It's well tracked. Composite's not bad. It does actually look a little bit green. I could go back and add some red in that, introduce some red into the image. But again, it's all about the fine tuning and getting it to a point where you feel it's believable. And honestly, toggling things on and off is what I do all the time, is constantly saying, okay, is this too much of this color, and by doing that, I think that you can really fine-tune your composites. So I feel like that's pretty good. That's it. That's how you track and composite a photo back into some moving footage.
So there you have it. That is the process of how I went from this to this and changed out that portrait up there. So now that I had everything color corrected, sound design, I had the VFX put in to make the portrait match the family, it was now time to create an end card. Now this one I left up to the client themselves. They had an in-house guy who was doing all their animations and their logo design. So I wasn't 100% set on the logo logo animations they decided on, but they sent me a few options and we decided on one we liked, and this was the final product. So once we had our end card put in, everything was good to go. It was now time to export and send to the client. Now, I mentioned before that I've been sending them cuts along the way for them to approve of the music and approve of the cut. So I probably sent 3 or 4 different cuts. And for those export settings, it wasn't super crucial that we had amazing quality. They just had to see it and approve of it. So those settings were export media, and I used YouTube 1080 HD. Now for the final export, I was delivering this project at 1080p. That's what they requested. It was going on the web and it was going on TV, and they didn't need 4K even though I shot the project in 6K. So I come in here to 1080p, 23.976. Now this preset HD at 1080 at 24 frames per second is the preset I use to deliver the final product that they're going to be uploading to the internet. But I also supply them with a master copy, which gives them the full resolution, not compressed at all version that they can keep on hand in case they ever plan on showing this on a big screen or somewhere where they need the highest quality uncompressed version of the video. I talk about this in the exporting section, so if you want to hear more in depth about these settings, go to the exporting video. It's the last video in the editing section. I export that so I have both the master file and the internet file, and then I save them both to Dropbox, Ogden Spot number 1 final videos, and in here you'll see both of the final deliverable videos in here. And as you can see, the ProRes 422 files are a lot bigger than the uploadable files. And you can upload these as well, they'll just take a lot longer. And then I'll go ahead and right click, copy Dropbox link, and then I'll push Command V and send that link to the client where they can then download those final files. Now Dropbox isn't the only option for sending large files. That's what I prefer because I can keep a desktop copy of all the files that I'm sending from different computers of mine or to different clients of mine. But Dropbox does cost $10 a month if you want to use more than 2 gigabytes at a time. I have found Dropbox to be the best solution, but there are other solutions like WeTransfer or Google Drive, which also work for sending large files across the internet. And then as a final step, once I've delivered the product, they're happy with it, everything's good to go, I will then make an invoice, which I provided a template that I use for you guys to see and to kind of copy after if you aren't familiar with doing invoices. But that's the final step of delivering and finishing a project with a client. So there you guys have it. That is the post-production process within the full production process of creating a product for a client. If you guys have any further questions, please let me know.